The Grand Hall of the Galactic Confederation fell silent. All 27 species had gathered for the emergency meeting. The room itself was huge, with tall ceilings and seats made to fit every kind of alien body. Light from 3 small suns came through the crystal dome above. At the center of the room stood Director Vasix, a tall blue alien with 4 arms. His skin looked like it was made of smooth stone. He touched a button, and a large image appeared above the round table. "This," he said in the common galactic language, "is what threatens us all." The image showed a black spot in space. Around it, stars and planets were being pulled in strange directions. Even to untrained eyes, it looked wrong and scary. "A rogue black hole has entered the populated areas of our galaxy," Vasix said. "It wasn't on any star charts. Our scientists say it will destroy at least 21 worlds with thinking beings on them. Billions will die." Worried sounds filled the room. Some aliens clicked their teeth. Others hummed in fear. A few tapped nervously on the table with their claws or fingers. Do-Hyun Kim, the human representative, watched carefully. He was a small man compared to many aliens, with short black hair turning gray at the sides. He wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's Space Force. While other species talked loudly over each other, he stayed quiet and took notes. "Can we move the planets?" asked a plant-like being whose flowers changed colors as it spoke. "Impossible," replied the head scientist, Thrix. She belonged to a species that looked like walking lizards. "There is no time. The black hole moves too fast." "Then we must evacuate," shouted someone from the back. Thrix shook her head. "Some worlds can evacuate, yes, but many don't have enough ships, and some species cannot survive long space journeys." The room grew louder with panic. Do-Hyun noticed how quickly the mighty Confederation was falling apart when faced with real danger. Director Vasix raised all 4 of his arms. "Please, we have a possible solution." The room quieted down. All eyes turned to the large screen as it changed to show a small ship and strange-looking devices. "Our scientists have created gravity-changing machines," Vasix explained. "If placed at 5 exact spots near the black hole, they can push it to a different path. Just a tiny change, 0.003 degrees, would save all those worlds." For a moment, hope filled the room. Then Thrix spoke again. "But the machines must be placed very close to the black hole. Too close for remote control to work. A living pilot must take them there and set each one up perfectly." "What are the chances of survival?" asked a winged delegate. Thrix's voice was flat. 0.2%. The hope disappeared. Now everyone understood. Someone would have to die to save billions. "We need volunteers," said Vasix. "Which species will offer pilots for this mission?" Silence filled the room again. Delegates looked at their notes. Some pretended to be busy. Others simply looked away. "My people are too few in number," said one. "Our religion forbids suicide missions," said another. "Our pilots lack the necessary skills," claimed a third. Excuse after excuse filled the room. Do-Hyun watched as the galaxy's most powerful beings refused to save billions of lives if it meant risking even one of their own. The meeting went on for hours. They talked about offering huge rewards. They discussed forcing criminals to go. Some even suggested creating artificial beings just for this mission. No one volunteered. As the first day of the summit ended, Do-Hyun Kim walked back to his small room. He looked out the window at the 3 setting suns. Then he took out his communication device and called Earth. Sometimes, he thought, humans were very different from the rest of the galaxy. And maybe, just this once, that difference might save everyone. The second day of the emergency summit started just as badly as the first had ended. The Great Hall of the Galactic Confederation was filled with angry voices. Some delegates were now blaming others for the crisis. "Your people's star maps failed to spot this black hole," shouted a delegate with 6 eyes. "Your scientists should have built better warning systems," yelled back another. Do-Hyun Kim sat quietly at the human section. Dark circles under his eyes showed he hadn't slept much. He checked his small device one more time, then nodded to himself. The message from Earth had arrived. Director Vasix tried to keep order, all four of his blue arms waving for attention. Please, fighting will not save our worlds. We must find pilots for this mission. A tall delegate stood up. He had gray skin that looked like metal. His voice boomed across the hall. I propose we use criminals sentenced to death. Each world can send their worst to fly these suicide missions. Many delegates nodded in agreement. This seemed like a good solution to them. And who will train these criminals to fly the most complex mission ever attempted? Asked Thrix, the lizard-like head scientist. Who will trust them to save billions instead of just flying away? Again, the argument started. Doyun watched as hours passed with no progress. The black hole moved closer to inhabited worlds with each wasted minute. Finally, Doyun stood up. He was smaller than most aliens in the room. His simple blue uniform had no fancy decorations like those worn by other species. Many delegates didn't even notice him at first. "Excuse me," he said. His voice wasn't loud, but something in his tone made others stop talking. "I have an announcement from Earth." Now all eyes turned to him, some with curiosity, others with doubt. "Humanity will provide volunteers for this mission," Doyun said simply. The room went completely silent. Then, slowly, confused whispers spread across the hall. "Volunteers?" asked Director Vasix. "Not forced, not prisoners. Free volunteers," confirmed Doyun. "In fact, the first call for pilots went out 6 hours ago. We already have over 3,000 who have stepped forward." The alien delegates stared in disbelief. Some checked their translator devices, sure they had misheard. A plant-like delegate's flowers turned dark blue with suspicion. "What do humans want in return? What payment do you seek?" Doyun looked confused by the question. "Payment? We seek no payment. The mission will save billions of lives. That is enough." "This makes no sense," said the metal-skinned delegate. "Humans are not the strongest species. Your lives are short already, only about 100 years. Why would you throw away what little time you have?" Doyun thought for a moment about how to explain. Throughout human history, we have always had people who would run into danger when others run away. We call them heroes, but they are just ordinary humans who choose to put others first. Vasix stepped closer to Doyun. "But this is not your fight alone. Many of the worlds in danger are not human colonies." "That doesn't matter to us," Doyun replied. "We are all part of this galaxy." The delegates began talking among themselves. Some seemed embarrassed. Others looked suspicious, sure that humans had a secret plan. Frix approached Doyun with a datapad. "If your people are serious, we need to start preparations immediately. The pilots will need special training. The mission requires knowledge of physics that few possess." Doyun nodded. "We have already contacted the Korean Space Agency on Earth. They have the most advanced black hole research team among humans. Dr. Ju Park is preparing a training program as we speak." As the meeting shifted to planning mode, Doyun noticed how the other delegates now looked at him differently, some with new respect, others with confusion, and a few with something that looked like shame. The humans, the galaxy's newcomers, had just shown every other species what courage really meant. The Korean Space Agency headquarters buzzed with activity. The large building, once a quiet place for research, now held the hopes of billions across the galaxy. People rushed through hallways. Screens showed data about the approaching black hole. The cafeteria stayed open day and night. Dr. Ju Park hadn't slept properly in days. Her small office was now covered with papers and empty coffee cups. At 42, she was the world's leading expert on black hole physics. Her dark hair was tied back messily, and she kept pushing her glasses up her nose as she worked. "Another 1,000 volunteers registered today," said Commander Taho Kang as he entered her office. He placed a fresh cup of coffee on her desk. Tall and straight-backed, Taho had spent 20 years training the best pilots on Earth. That makes over 15,000. Ju sighed. How do we choose when so many are willing to go? Tahoe sat down across from her. We need more than just courage. We need the right skills. They had created special tests for the volunteers. First came physical tests to see who could handle extreme conditions. Then came mental tests to find people who stayed calm under pressure. Finally, there were knowledge tests about space, physics, and black holes. The alien scientists sent their latest data, Ju said, pointing to her screen. The mission will need someone who understands both flying and physics. They must place the devices in exactly the right spots while fighting against gravity stronger than anything humans have ever faced. After 3 weeks of testing, they had narrowed it down to 50 candidates. These final volunteers were brought to the Korean Space Agency for personal interviews and advanced training. Among them was Captain Hyeren Choi. At 34, she had an unusual background. She had first studied physics, earning a doctorate before joining the space program. She was smaller than most pilots, with short black hair and serious eyes. But in the simulator tests, she had scored higher than anyone. "Why did you volunteer, Captain Choi?" asked Ju during the interview. Hyeren thought for a moment. "I lost my parents in the Jakarta flood when I was young. Strangers saved me. I never knew their names or saw their faces again. But they risked everything for someone they didn't know." She looked directly at Ju. "Now it's my turn." Lieutenant Minja Ryu was selected as the backup pilot. At 29, he was a mathematical genius who could solve space navigation problems in his head. He had a friendly smile and nervous energy, always moving, always thinking. "I calculated the odds myself," he told Tahoe during his final test. 0.2% chance of survival, but 100% chance of saving billions. The math is simple. The final week of selection was the hardest. The remaining candidates trained together in a special facility that simulated extreme gravity. They learned about the 5 gravity devices they would need to place. They studied the black hole's path and properties. On the last day, Ju and Tahoe made their decision. They called all the candidates together in the main hall. "You have all shown remarkable courage and skill," Ju said. "Any one of you would make humanity proud." The room was silent. Everyone knew what was coming. "The primary pilot for the Hangul mission will be Captain Hyeren Choi," announced Tahoe. "The backup pilot will be Lieutenant Minja Ryu." Hyeren stepped forward, her face calm but determined. The other candidates applauded. There were no hard feelings, no complaints. They had all volunteered for the same reason. As Hyeren accepted the mission patch, Earth's symbol next to the Galactic Confederation emblem, she thought about the billions of lives depending on her. Many weren't human. Most she would never meet. It didn't matter. She would fly into darkness for them all. The spaceship sat in the center of the largest building on Earth. Bright lights shone on its sleek, dark surface. It wasn't very big, only about twice the size of old-time airplanes, but it was the most advanced ship ever built. "We call it Hangul," said Dr. Sunwoo Lee, walking around the vessel with Captain Hyeren Choi. Sunwoo was the lead engineer, a tall man with careful hands and tired eyes. He hadn't left the building in 30 days. "It means Korean writing," Hyeren said, touching the cool metal of the ship's side. "A good name. A good name for a ship that will write a new future for the galaxy," Sunwoo agreed. "Come inside." The inside of Hangul was surprisingly simple. There were 2 pilot seats, surrounded by screens and controls. Behind them was a small living area with food storage, a sleep pod, and a tiny bathroom. The back half of the ship held the 5 gravity devices that would save billions of lives. 17 different alien species helped build this ship, Sunwoo explained. The outer shell is made from Viridian heat-resistant metal. The engines use Axlati fold space technology. The life support system was designed by the Novalians. Hyeren ran her hand over the controls. Did they really help because they wanted to, or because they felt ashamed that none of them volunteered? Sunwoo shrugged. "Does it matter? The ship is strong. It will take you there. Later that day, Hiren met with Dr. Ju Park to learn about the science behind the mission. They sat in a round room with a 3D display in the center, showing the black hole and its path. The black hole is moving through our galaxy like this, Ju said, tracing the path with her finger. The display showed stars and planets in the way. We need to change its path by just 0.003 degrees. That small change will make it miss all inhabited worlds. And these will do that. Hiren pointed to the 5 round devices shown in the display. Yes, they're called gravity phase inverters, Ju explained. Each one creates a field that pushes against the black hole's gravity. 1 device would do nothing. 2 would be too weak. 3 might work briefly. 4 would almost be enough. But all 5, placed in the exact right positions, will create a perfect deflection field. Hiren nodded. The math made sense to her. And I need to place them manually because remote control doesn't work that close to a black hole. Exactly. The signals get too distorted by the gravity. A human needs to make the final adjustments based on real-time readings. For the next 2 weeks, Hiren and Minji trained inside Hangul every day. They practiced placing the devices in simulators. They memorized emergency procedures. They studied the black hole's properties until they could recite them in their sleep. Many alien scientists came to watch the training. Most were skeptical at first. The calculations are correct, said a tall, thin alien scientist to Ju. But no biological being can execute this mission perfectly. The forces near the black hole will be too extreme. You don't know humans very well, Ju replied. We perform best when things seem impossible. The night before the launch, Hiren couldn't sleep. She walked around the quiet building and found Sunwoo still working on the ship. Any last adjustments? She asked. Just double-checking everything, he said, not looking up from his work. This ship needs to bring you home. Hiren smiled sadly. They both knew the chances of that were very small. As long as it helps me finish the mission, that's enough. Sunwoo finally looked at her. The entire galaxy will remember what humans did, whether you return or not. I'm not doing it to be remembered, Hiren said, looking at the ship that would carry her toward almost certain death. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. Tomorrow, Hangul would leave Earth, carrying humanity's best hope to save the galaxy. Launch day arrived with clear skies and a cool breeze. The launch site was crowded with people from Earth and visitors from across the galaxy. Large screens showed the Hangul sitting on its platform, ready for its journey. Hiren walked toward the ship in her flight suit. It was white with blue stripes and had both Earth's flag and the Galactic Confederation symbol on the shoulders. Minji walked beside her, carrying a small bag with personal items for the journey. As they approached the ship, they passed a line of alien dignitaries. Most were there because they had to be, not because they wanted to be. Hiren could feel their eyes on her. The humans are really going through with this, whispered a Viridian ambassador, his green skin shining in the sunlight. They must have some secret way to survive that they're not sharing. Perhaps they're using criminals after all, another alien suggested. Forced volunteers. Hiren pretended not to hear them. She had gotten used to the doubts and suspicions. Many species simply couldn't understand why humans would volunteer for this mission. Do-Hyun Kim, Earth's representative, waited at the foot of the boarding ramp. He bowed slightly as Hiren and Minji approached. Captain Choi, Lieutenant Ryu, he said formally. The people of Earth and the entire Galactic Confederation thank you for your service. It is our honor, Hiren replied, just as formally. Do-Hyun lowered his voice. Some of the ambassadors are still confused by our willingness to help. The Axlati representative asked me this morning if you two were being paid with entire planets. Minji almost laughed. Tell him we're doing it for the usual reason, so that others may live. A tall alien with 4 arms approached them. It was Director Vasix, head of the Confederation Council. His blue skin looked paler than usual. Captain Choi, he said, I must ask one final time. Are you certain about this mission? The chances of survival are very small. Hiren finished for him. Yes, we know. We've known from the beginning. Vasix seemed troubled. In my 1,000 years of life, I have never seen a species so willing to sacrifice for others. Then you have much to learn about humans, said a voice behind them. Jung Wei-Yun walked up, her long coat flapping in the breeze. She was Earth's psychological liaison for the mission, responsible for monitoring the mental health of the crew during their journey. Humans have always defined themselves by their willingness to help others, she continued. Throughout our history, people have run into burning buildings, jumped into dangerous waters, and faced impossible odds to save strangers. But these aren't even your people you're saving, Vasix said, gesturing to the various alien species watching from a distance. They're people, Junhwa said simply. That's enough for us. The final boarding call sounded. It was time to leave. Hiren hugged Junhwa briefly, then shook hands with Doyun. Minjae did the same. Together, they walked up the ramp into the hangar. Inside the ship, they strapped themselves into the pilot's seats. The controls lit up around them as the ship's systems came online. Pre-launch check complete, Minjae reported after running through the list. All systems green. Hiren took a deep breath. Through the view screen, she could see the crowd watching. Human faces showed pride and worry. Alien faces showed curiosity and doubt. Hangul to control, she said into her communication system. We are ready for launch. Control to Hangul, came Dr. Juwoo's voice. You are cleared for launch. Safe journey. Hiren, Minjae. The engines hummed to life. The ship lifted slowly at first, then faster. Earth fell away below them, growing smaller by the second. As they broke through the atmosphere into the blackness of space, Hiren thought about the journey ahead. 47 days to reach the black hole. Then the most dangerous mission any human had ever attempted. Course set for the rendezvous point with the Confederation escort, Minjae said, entering commands. Hiren nodded. Take us out, Lieutenant. We have a galaxy to save. The Hangul's main engines fired, and Earth became just another bright point of light behind them. Life aboard the Hangul quickly fell into a routine. Hiren woke each day at the same time, checked the ship's systems, exercised for 1 hour in the small open area, and then began her work. Minjae usually woke earlier and had coffee waiting for her. Day 7, Minjae said as Hiren entered the control room. All systems still working perfectly. The journey to the black hole would take 47 days using the experimental fold space technology. The ship moved through space in short jumps, folding the space in front of it, and then unfolding behind. It was much faster than normal space travel, but still not instant. Have you named the AIs yet? Hiren asked, taking the coffee. Minjae smiled. Yes, I've named them after 3 ancient Korean scholars. He pointed to the 3 small blue lights on the control panel. This one is Sejong, this is Yulvuk, and this is Dazin. The 3 AI systems helped run the ship. Sejong controlled navigation, Yulvuk managed the engines, and Dazin monitored life support. They didn't talk like humans, but they could understand commands and learn from experience. Good choices, Hiren said. She liked having these connections to Earth's history as they traveled farther from home. Each day, Hiren and Minjae spent hours studying the latest data on the black hole. They practiced placing the gravity devices in the ship's simulator. They also had daily calls with mission control, though the calls got shorter as they moved farther away. The signal delay is now 12 minutes. Dr. Juwoo's voice came through the communication system on day 15. Soon we won't be able to have real conversations. We'll switch to daily reports then, Hiren replied. She enjoyed these talks with Juwoo, who had become both a colleague and a friend during training. How are you feeling about the mission? Juwoo asked. There was real concern in her voice. Hiren thought before answering. I'm ready. The simulator runs are going well. Minjae and I can place all 5 devices within the time limit now. That's not what I asked, Juwoo said gently. Hiren sighed. I'm at peace with it. I volunteered knowing the odds. Everyone I care about knows why I'm doing this. The ship passed through different parts of the galaxy. Sometimes they saw amazing sights, colorful nebulas, dense star fields, or the rings of giant planets. Hiren took pictures to send back to Earth, though she knew they might never be seen if the mission failed. On day 23, something unexpected happened. As the Hangul approached the Caledon system, hundreds of small lights appeared on their sensors. Are those ships? Minjay asked, checking the readings. There are no military exercises scheduled in this area. Hiren switched to visual mode. The screen showed hundreds, maybe thousands of ships of all sizes and shapes. They were forming a line on either side of the Hangul's path. Incoming message, Minjay said, pressing a button. Hangul crew, this is Captain Trez of the Caledon Defense Fleet, came a deep voice. We heard you were passing through today. We wanted to see the humans who volunteered to save us all. As the Hangul passed between the lines of ships, each one turned on all its running lights, creating a bright pathway through space. It was a salute, an honor guard for the small human ship on its dangerous mission. We wish you success, Captain Trez continued. The people of Caledon will not forget what Earth has done. Similar displays happened twice more in the following weeks. Species that had never shown humans much respect were now lining up to honor their sacrifice. By day 40, the mood on the ship grew more serious. The black hole was now visible on their long-range sensors, a dark spot where no stars shone. The gravity readings were already stronger than anything in the training simulations. It's bigger than they predicted, Minjay said quietly, looking at the data. Hiren nodded. We'll adjust the deployment points. Sejong, recalculate optimal positions for the gravity devices based on new mass estimates. The blue light blinked as the AI worked. Hiren stared at the screen showing the black hole. Soon, they would face the ultimate test of human courage. By day 40, the Hangul was entering territory no human ship had ever visited. The black hole grew from a tiny dark spot to a massive void in space. No stars could be seen through it, only perfect darkness. Hull stress increasing, Minjay reported on the morning of day 42. The gravity is pulling harder than our shields can fully block. Hiren nodded as she checked the readings. Strange things were happening all around them. Light bent in odd ways. Their sensors showed impossible readings. Even time itself seemed to flow differently. The ship's clocks no longer matched exactly. The Hangul's metal frame creaked and groaned like an old wooden ship in a storm. These sounds hadn't been present during their training on Earth. I'm adjusting our approach vector, Hiren said, her hands moving quickly over the controls. Sejong, calculate a path that minimizes hull stress. The blue AI light blinked as it worked. The ship turned slightly, finding a smoother path through the increasingly distorted space. By day 45, things got worse. As Hiren was sleeping, a loud alarm woke her. She rushed to the control room where Minjay was already working. The primary deployment system is failing, he said, his voice calm despite the danger. The gravity is affecting the mechanical parts more than expected. Hiren looked at the diagnostic screen. The system that would release the 5 gravity devices wasn't working properly. Without it, their mission would fail completely. We need to fix it, she said simply. And there's only one way to do that. Minjay looked at her with understanding and concern. A spacewalk, right next to a black hole. I'll go, Hiren said. You need to monitor the ship's position and keep us from drifting closer. Preparing for the spacewalk took an hour. Hiren put on the special suit designed to protect her from both the vacuum of space and the intense radiation near the black hole. It was heavy and awkward, but it might keep her alive long enough to make the repairs. The manual override is on the outer hull, behind panel A7. Minjay explained as he helped her with the helmet. You'll need to reset the system and realign the deployment arm. Should take about 20 minutes, Hiren said. If I'm not back in 30, assume something went wrong. Minjay's face was serious. I'll give you 25. The airlock cycled, And then Hiren was outside the ship. She had done spacewalks during training, but nothing like this. The stars around her looked wrong. Some appeared stretched like long lines of light. Others seemed to move in slow circles. The black hole dominated everything, a perfect circle of nothing that somehow pulled at her eyes, making it hard to look away. She used her tether to move along the hull until she reached panel A7. The metal was hot on one side and freezing on the other. The gravity was affecting even how heat moved through materials. Working in the thick gloves, she opened the panel and saw the problem. The deployment arm had shifted out of alignment due to the gravitational stress. As she worked, Hiren had a clear view of the space around her. The stars, the darkness, the impossible physics at work. For a moment, she understood why no other species had volunteered. It wasn't just fear of death. It was the rational understanding that some tasks simply exceeded the capabilities of biological beings. Yet here she was, a human, doing what everyone said was impossible. The repair took all her strength and focus. Twice, the tools floated from her hands due to the strange gravity, and she had to catch them quickly. Finally, after 23 minutes, the system reset, and the arm moved back into position. "It's done," she said into her communication system. "The deployment system is working again. Get back inside." Minji's voice replied with relief. "Your oxygen is running low." As Hiren made her way back to the airlock, she took one last look at the black hole. Tomorrow they would begin the final approach. They would attempt what no one in the galaxy believed could be done. And somehow, despite everything, she still believed they could succeed. "Final approach beginning," Hiren announced, her voice steady despite what lay ahead. All systems ready for deployment. Day 47 had arrived. It was time for the most dangerous part of their mission. The Hangul was now closer to a black hole than any ship had ever been. The view screen showed a strange sight. Stars appeared to circle around the dark void as light itself bent around the massive gravity well. "Mission Control, this is Hangul," Minji said into the communication system. "We are beginning final approach and deployment sequence." There was no answer. They had known this would happen. The electromagnetic interference from the black hole blocked all signals. From now on, they were completely alone. "Deploying gravity inverter 1, Hiren said, pressing a sequence of controls. The ship shuddered as the first device launched from its bay. The small round object flew ahead of them, its thrusters guiding it to the exact position calculated by their computers. "Device 1 in position," Minji confirmed, watching the readings. "Activating now." A blue light appeared on their screen as the first gravity inverter came online. It was working perfectly, creating a small push against the black hole's enormous pull. The ship moved carefully to the next position. "Deploying gravity inverter 2, Hiren said. The second device launched smoothly. Again, they watched as it moved into position and activated. 2 down, 3 to go, Minji said with a small smile. But as they prepared for the third deployment, warning lights flashed across the control panel. "Gravitational shear increasing," Hiren called out. "The ship is being pulled apart." The Hangul creaked and groaned even louder than before. On the hull stress monitors, red areas were spreading like a disease. "We need to adjust our position," Minji said, his fingers flying over the controls. "Yulgok, divert more power to the structural integrity field." The blue AI light blinked rapidly as it followed the command. The ship stabilized enough for them to continue. Hiren wiped sweat from her forehead. The cabin temperature was rising as the environmental systems struggled against the intense gravitational forces. "Deploying gravity inverter 3, she said. The third device launched, but as it flew toward its position, its thrusters sputtered and failed. "Device 3 is off course," Minji reported, alarm in his voice. "The gravity is too strong for its guidance system." They watched as the device drifted away from its planned position. If it didn't reach the exact spot, their entire mission would fail. "I'm going to try remote piloting," Hiren said, switching to manual control of the device. For 10 tense minutes, she fought against the black hole's pull, trying to guide the small device into position. Finally, it reached close enough to the planned coordinates. "Activating device 3, she said, pressing the button. The third blue light appeared on their screen. It wasn't in the perfect position, but it was close enough to work. As they moved to the fourth position, disaster struck. The deployment system, despite Hiren's earlier repair, failed completely. "The arm won't release device 4, Minja reported after running a quick diagnostic. "The mechanism is fused from the heat." They both knew what this meant. Without all 5 devices properly placed, billions would die. Minja stood up suddenly. "There's an auxiliary craft in the rear bay. I can take device 4 manually." Hiren stared at him. "That's suicide, Minja. The auxiliary craft doesn't have enough shielding to survive out there." "It doesn't need to survive long," he said quietly. "Just long enough to get the device in position." Before Hiren could argue, he continued, "The mission comes first. You know that. You need to stay with the ship to place device 5. That's the most important one." Hiren wanted to stop him, but she knew he was right. Without all 5 devices, everything they had done would be for nothing. "I'll be back if I can," Minja said, though they both knew he wouldn't. He grabbed her hand briefly, then headed toward the rear of the ship. Minutes later, Hiren watched on her screen as the small auxiliary craft left the hangar. It carried Minja and the 4th gravity inverter toward the coordinates. "Device 4 in position," came Minji's voice, breaking up with static. "Activating now." The 4th blue light appeared on her screen. There was no signal from the auxiliary craft after that. With tears floating in zero gravity around her, Hiren prepared for the final and most dangerous part of the mission, placing the 5th device, which required bringing the hangar closer to the event horizon than anyone had ever gone before. Alone in the damaged hangar, Hiren wiped away her tears. There was no time for grief. The 5th and most critical gravity inverter still needed to be placed. "Sejong, plot course for the final deployment point," she ordered. The blue AI light blinked in response. The final position was the most dangerous, so close to the black hole that even light struggled to escape. No ship was designed to survive there, but the hangar had to try. As the ship moved forward, the view screen showed only distortion. Stars appeared as long streaks of light. The ship's metal frame made sounds like it was being torn apart. "Hull breach in Section 3, reported Dason. "The life support AI. Sealing off affected area." Hiren felt the ship shudder violently. Warning alarms blared from every system. The gravity was so strong now that she felt heavier in her seat, despite the ship's protective fields. "Deploying gravity inverter 5, she said, activating the final device. The ship jerked as the last device launched. On her screen, Hiren watched its progress. It moved slowly, fighting against the immense gravity pull. "Come on," she whispered, "just a little further." The device reached its position. With shaking hands, Hiren activated it. The 5th blue light appeared on her screen. All 5 gravity inverters were now in place. Immediately, she felt the change. The space around the black hole began to warp differently. On her instruments, she could see the massive object's path starting to shift. Just 0.003 degrees, but enough to save billions of lives. "Mission accomplished," she said to the empty control room. Now came the impossible part, trying to escape. "All power to engines," she ordered. "Maximum emergency thrust." The hangar turned away from the black hole and fired its engines at full power. The ship moved painfully slowly at first, fighting against the pull that wanted to drag it into darkness forever. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Systems failed one after another. The rear section of the ship tore away completely. Hiren's vision blurred. The gravity was affecting her body now, pulling the blood down to her feet. She was close to passing out. With the last of her strength, she activated the emergency escape sequence, a desperate plan they had hoped never to use. Ejecting survival pod, she managed to say as she hit the final button. Everything went black. 3 months later, at the Proxima Centauri relay station, a small object appeared on the sensors. "Something's coming out of fold space," called the station operator. "It's too small to be a ship." As they watched, a damaged escape pod emerged. Its surface was burned and warped in impossible ways. No one expected anything inside to be alive. When they opened it, they found Captain Hiram Choi, barely breathing, but somehow still alive. The data records in the pod confirmed what the galaxy already knew from observing the black hole. The mission had succeeded. The black hole's path had shifted by the critical 0.003 degrees. 21 inhabited worlds would be saved. News of Hiram's survival spread across the galaxy faster than any signal before it. The human who had returned from the impossible became a symbol of hope and courage to every species. 1 year later, Hiram stood before the Galactic Confederation. Her body had healed, though doctors said she would always walk with a limp. The time distortion near the black hole had affected her strangely. Streaks of white now ran through her black hair, though she was still young. Director Vasix, who had once doubted humans, now presented her with the highest honor of the Confederation. "Because of you and Lieutenant Rio, billions will live," he said. "You have taught us all what true courage means." In the years that followed, monuments were built on every saved planet. They all carried the same message in 27 different languages. When no species volunteered, humanity stepped forward. Ships from Earth were welcomed everywhere they went. Human crews found friends on worlds where they had once been barely tolerated. The sacrifice of Minja Ryu and the survival of Hiram Choi had changed how the galaxy saw humanity. On the 10th anniversary of the mission, now a respected teacher at the Korean Space Academy, Hiram visited the largest monument on Earth. There, carved in stone, were the faces of all those who had volunteered for the mission, with Minja's at the center. A young alien student approached her. "Teacher Hiram, why did humans volunteer when no one else would?" Hiram smiled gently. "Because that's what humans do. We see the impossible, and we try anyway. Sometimes, we even succeed."